Admit it, you expected your guests and your contractors to act reasonably. Now you've realized it's not all sunshine and 5-star reviews. That means you're in the right place. Today we're joined by Scott, who we are continuing our conversation with about how to build the perfect short-term rental. We go through how to underwrite the deal, what he can expect as far as expenses go, snow plowing, cable internet, and so on. And also a conversation he had with a builder. That's because this is the community where we talk about the gross, the awkward, and the operational messes, as well as the real strategies that help you keep going instead of taking the loss. Welcome to Short-Term Rental Problems and Solutions. Let's get into today's question.
Yeah. So, Jeremiah, what do you think that I can earn with a place like this? Like, we just don't know what to expect.
Yes, absolutely. There's a couple of ways that you can research this. One is by going through AirDNA. As a property manager, you called me so that you can get like that personal perspective. I can tell you, I don't have anything in our portfolio that we manage right now that would be focused on just two guests, like two couples, that would be like what you're describing. But I do have some small homes that are like close to 1,000 square feet that are doing really well. And each one of them has one bath. So I could talk about Lover's Lodge, which was purchased at $290,000. They added about $30,000 of furniture and decor. And that place rents really consistently. In any given month, we've got maybe 5 days that are vacant. And it's usually just that there's not 2 days in a row that somebody could actually book because the minimum stay in that neighborhood is 2 nights. That house is located in Albrightsville. And it's constantly rented, clearing around $5,000 a month. Last July, we brought in $10,500 just in the month of July for that one cabin. So they can be incredibly successful. One of the limiting factors on what somebody will and can pay for a cabin, and that's a log cabin, so it's another comparable for what you're looking at. But one of the limiting factors on what somebody can pay is their budget alone. But if you have two couples, now you've got the combined earning potential, right, of 4 people. And so what they might spend as just a romantic getaway might be $700, $800. What they spend for that cabin is closer to $1,000, $1,200. But if you put two couples together and give them an amazing experience like that, now you're talking maybe $1,800 to $2,000 that you can bring in for that. So these numbers that I'm comparing to, you're going to expect to do better with your current plan, especially starting with like new construction, right? There's an A-frame that I manage. The market value for that's around $340,000. That house is also booking up the same exact way. It's one of those go small, high occupancy kind of cabins. And that one's doing around $4,500 a month. This is just its second month that it's in operation. Another one is actually a ranch, also focused on, one couple at a time. That one's 600 square feet. And people do call it cozy. So do I. It's a high end and nice, but it's small and compact, right? So that house is doing consistently around $4,500 a month and just rents. So like these numbers that I'm giving you, that's after taking out the cleaning fee and the registration fees for the HOA. So you're going to cash flow if your mortgage is based on, $350,000 purchase. You should be able to cash flow on something like that. And then over time, you reinvest some of that money into better landscaping, maybe budget for replacement of the hot tub at some point, adding in a sauna. Like there's things like that you'll recognize over time that guests would like or that they're asking for that you'll decide that you're going to start putting into it. When you make money like that, a great idea is to add value that the guests were not expecting. One of the ways that I'm doing that is I stock the fridge with sodas and waters. So there's 2 Diet Cokes, 2 regular Cokes, 2 Sprites, and 2 bottles of water. And so we put these into all of our houses. I buy them at Sam's Club, get them real nice and cheap. This is not a promotion for Sam's Club, just saying. When you buy in bulk, you can get a good deal and you can offer these kinds of amenities, these value adds at scale. And that's a really good way to just get consistent 5-star reviews, is to make the guests feel like they're getting a better value out of their stay than what they paid for it. Now, even with all those things, you're still going to have the guests that, they came here so they could go ski or snowboard and they ended up, getting rained out. And so they're really upset. They didn't have a good experience, and it has absolutely nothing to do with you. So be prepared for that. I'm not wishing it on you, but it's part of our industry and you'll get used to it. You'll know how to deal with it when it comes up. But I had a guest one time get really upset because there was wild animals. You're in the woods. Did you come here to see wild animals?
Yeah.
Uh, like, what do you want me to do? Send over an exterminator to get rid of the squirrels? Like, they're not
Right.
in the house.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
outside the house. But in that situation, there was a deer munching on some trash across the street, and they just really felt like somebody should come over and shoo it away and clean up the neighbor's trash. So, what do you do in that situation, right? So Scott, I mean, you'll get there. You'll see what it's like to work with these guests, and they're not all bad like that. But sometimes you you've got ones that are like that. But I feel like I'm getting a little off topic here. I feel like what you're describing, like this Amish build that you're showing me from Signature Homes, a lot that's in Talamancing Trails, and the cost. It all seems like it's an incredible deal, and it should make plenty of money. You've got to put a value on the self management. So that would be like replacement value. So when you're underwriting this deal, you're already going to look at all the normal things like utilities and HOA fees, but think about like the rent that comes in and put a value on that rent. So you managing it yourself is worth about 20 to 25%. That's what another manager would charge for it. So when you handle it yourself, remember that 75% of what comes in, that's your profit for making a good investment. The other 25%, that's the pay that you're actually getting for managing this place yourself.
Yeah.
So if you at some point decide that it's not worth your time, that's what you're giving up. It's just something else to consider.
Yeah. I feel that if we were clearing a good profit, we would probably use management such as yourself, your company,
Hmm.
because we both have full-time jobs. Our goal is to have more free time, and that's why we want to invest in stuff, not to have less free time or to feel like we have a second job.
Yeah.
We'd rather pay someone else for that second job who that's what they do for a living. So it's or even partially managed. I have the ability to, I think, interact online and do a lot of the
Hmm.
virtual stuff myself. uh, I don't have the ability to, in Talamancing Trails, we experienced this firsthand, right? You uh, you come in and they had to have this packet for when we do the trash at the end and when we take it to the trash area. We had to have two things to hang on our car.
Hmm.
They had to have those filled out already. Physically can't do that. We live 2 hours away, so
Hmm.
we'd have to have some level of management. Um,
Most cleaners do that.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
good to know.
Not
Good
trying
to
to
know.
talk myself out of the job. I'd love to work with you. Just saying, like, there's ways to navigate this in order to make it manageable. Even just having somebody nearby that's on your side that's going to inspect the house every now and then.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of operators write off the idea of inspections, and it's because they want their cleaner to think that they just trust them blindly, but there's no value in your cleaner thinking that you trust them blindly,
yeah,
or at least not in my experience. So you're probably wondering about some of these expenses, some
yeah.
things
I
that
don't
you've
want to
got
miss
to.
anything.
Yeah. So a cleaner for a typical two-bedroom house is going to charge anywhere between $90 for that clean, and I would say $250 on the high end. And that depends on a lot of things. Linens included or not included, the amount of labor that's involved in taking care of it. If they're including the consumables, like I was talking about sodas and waters, if they're including all soaps and hair conditioners and all these different types of things that your home is going to consume, I think it's really good to let your cleaners take care of the logistics because they can take care of it across the board and they just include that in their cleaning fee. And then that cleaning fee gets passed along to your guests, right? The guest is going to pay a fixed amount plus a nightly rate. So the cleaners are going to charge based on the clean. The more occupancy you have, the happier they're going to be about that because there's highs and lows in this area. And in the slow season, like the spring, those cleaners really appreciate their homeowners that keep them busy in the spring. But that's just the cleaners. You've got HOA fees. When Talamancing Trails, they charge the HOA fees to everybody. I think that's around $600 a year. And then they also charge for you to have the privilege of renting. That's like another $600 a year. And then per reservation, they're charging. So they changed this up recently, and I don't. I sign the checks, but I don't like do the registrations and come up with the total anymore. It used to be $25 plus $5 per vehicle. Now it's something different because I'm signing checks for like $21 and $27 and things like that. So they adjusted the pricing, but it's not extraordinarily high. It is per reservation. And the way we handle it is that we actually write them a check after they tell us the total. You can also have your cleaners handle this. They'll take cash with them, they'll pay, they'll get a receipt, they'll add it to their invoices. That's very common with cleaners who service the Talmenting Trails neighborhood. But that's your HOA fees practically. You've also got the cost of management. So if you're going to self manage or if you're going to find a property manager, expect that to be 20. Actually, there's really cheap ones at 15. And there's also like a hybrid model where it's marketed by somebody else and they handle some of the communications like Evolve. I've heard a lot of complaints with that. Also, you are familiar with AI and you can't really involve AI if you're having them manage it. So there's pros and cons to management, but you would expect full service property management between 20 and 25% of the net rent. So with that, full service management means that they're going to find the cleaners, they're going to find contractors when there's an issue. It's their name that's on the line. And nobody's even going to know that Scott owns his house. It's just going to be something that your managers are handling.
So when you say 20 to 25% of net rent, is what the management would take. I feel like this is a silly question, but
Hmm.
I know what net means. But when it comes to like the cleaning fees, like what's paid to the cleaner, they
Hmm.
coordinate all of that and they just explain it, if you will.
Absolutely. So, in the most basic terms, because there's definitely nuances, your property manager is going to take the total that the guest paid, call it $1,200, subtract off the cleaning fee, $200, subtract off the registration fee, maybe another $30. And what's left is what they're going to call net rent. So it's net of pass through. That might be, depending on who you're talking to, that might be the number that was on the calendar, like 293 for this night, 212 for that night, 115 for this night. All of that together is what they're calling their rent, and they're calling it their net rent, which doesn't account for platform fees. And they're splitting that with you. So that's their commission. They're getting 20 or 25%, whatever that number happens to be. And you want them to have the incentive to get your rent up, which is why their compensation is based on the rent. If it's a really important weekend, you want them to take it really seriously because that's the really high valued weekends. If it's the really inexpensive weekends, you still want them to take that seriously. But, when they can get you extra rent, that's the money that you actually make. The pass-throughs, the community and the cleaners, you're not really making anything from that. So that's how you calculate net rent.
Yeah. Okay.
You've also got maintenance, and a lot of people don't know how to calculate that for the Poconos. And I could go on for a while because obviously it's my world, right? It's what I live in. But something that's always overestimated is the cost of lawn care. Like getting a regular lawn out here cut is like $50 to $100, depending on how big it is and how challenging it is. If you're buying a lot in Talmenting Trails, you're probably talking like $65 each time. But because of our elevation and because of the cover of trees, that grass doesn't grow very fast. So it's like every 2 weeks that it actually gets cut. And it's just starting to grow today. And this is April 14th. So like our first cut is going to be at the end of April. And then every 2 weeks after that until like the end of September means that you're actually cutting your grass maybe 10 times. So like estimate
Okay.
around $650 on average for an average lawn for yearly maintenance. You could actually spend more money on plowing. So an average driveway that's just straight and they're able to push it instead of having to back drag it from a garage. That's usually like $50 to $85 depending on the service. So that typically happens 4 to 8 times per winter. So the numbers can go up significantly, but I prefer that the pricing is based on per occurrence. Other places, they'll charge you like by the season. And I just feel like there's a lot of opportunity for them to just not go when there's only 3 inches and they're like, well, it's supposed to be 3.5 before I come and take care of it. Now you're kind of like fighting to get them to do services where
Mhm.
otherwise, it's per occurrence. They know they're going to get paid if they go out and do it. But Typically, I think they estimate that it's going to be like 7 times a year. And if it's 4 to 8, then you save money if you don't go seasonal pricing. It's nice to not have to worry about it, but anyway. So that's how you underwrite some of those things. Utilities is going to depend heavily on the mechanicals, because heat is one of the biggest expenses out here for utilities. So going with propane or going with like mini splits is going to be kind of close to each other. Obviously, markets fluctuate with the value of propane. I've got tips for how to negotiate the price of propane down. You can usually get it around $1.50 per gallon, but that's not where they start. They start like giving you a tank and filling it for $4.20 a gallon. And that's ridiculous when you can get them down to $1.50. So don't trust the propane companies any further than you could throw them. They're all like the same way. It's kind of ridiculous, but they are very negotiable, just so that you know. I got, not to brag, but one time I got 200 gallons for free, and I
Wow.
got another 200 gallons for $1 per gallon. And then I was fixed after that because I buy a lot of propane. And I threatened to leave them. but but yeah, so you're able to get deals like that. Like there's huge profit margins in the propane delivery services, and it's ridiculous. But you got to know to look for it and how to play them off against each other, because at the end of the day, gas is gas. It's all the same quality, and it's probably coming from the same place. Anyway, so with utilities, you would want to estimate for 1,000 square foot house, like maybe $800 in your coldest months, as like a maximum. And that's if it's electricity, and that's adding in your hot tub and the use of a sauna. So that's like the top line. That's about as high as it can go. In the summertime, I'm looking at like $200 maybe with AC. Take out the AC, and we'll talk about September. I've seen electric bills as low as $100. So you can really find a lot of variability in it. Another thing to know is most of this area is serviced by PP&L, and PP&L will allow you to do budget billing, which fixes your expense the same amount every month. So when those highs and lows come in, you're still paying the same amount. So that's just another thing to know about utilities. There's not really other utilities. We could talk about Wi-Fi. Internet sucks, completely terrible. There's only one option out here, and the house that I'm sitting in right now, I'm not even sure if I'm going to have enough internet to last the end of the call. Right? It goes off all the time, and they're no good. And I used to think that Comcast was bad, but you have not dealt with Atlantic Broadband. And now they call themselves by a different name because they had such a bad reputation as Atlantic Broadband. And before that, it was Metrocast. And now they're Breezeline, Breezeway, Breezeline, whatever they are. It's a Breeze something. And there's a software in this industry that I refuse to talk to because it's a similar name as my terrible cable company. And they know that you don't have any other options when it comes to high-speed internet. You could do high-speed DSL, you could do Starlink, you could do like a T-Mobile hotspot. But overall, it really depends on where you're located, what kind of speeds you're looking for, to see if any of those other options exist. But in the high-speed cable, digital internet, you can get like a gigabyte per second for like $100 a month. But you're going to have to deal with the worst operators, the worst customer service. And when your internet's off for a week and you just can't get there to unplug it and plug it back in, they're still charging you for a week of service. It's never mind.
But that sounds like that's wherever it's just the Poconos, right?
So there's Blue Ridge Communications, which is significantly better than Breezeline. And there's like Comcast or Xfinity, which is better still. So where you end up being, it's just like, that kind of sucks, right? If you
Yeah.
buy in Talmincy Trails, you're probably going to get Blue Ridge Communications, which is better than what I'm dealing with. But across 3 of my 5 accounts, I've got to deal with Breezeway, and it's the worst customer service you could experience. So you really have to kind of keep on top of them because they know they're the only game in town. Now, even when
Yeah.
you're with Blue Ridge, they know they're the only game, but they don't seem to take advantage of it nearly as much. They've got their own quirks, but anyway, insurance, home insurance rates have been going up. So if this surprises you, that might also just because of inflation. But that house is probably going to be insured for around $2,000 a year. That, because of your taxes, is probably going to be wrapped into your mortgage. It's going to be escrowed, but
Right.
factor like maybe $400 a month onto your payment when you're calculating that out. Your taxes on a house that's around $400,000, you can expect in Carbon County to be spending $4,000 to $6,000 a year in taxes, in real estate taxes. Now that probably seems really palatable for somebody from New Jersey, and I know because people are moving to Pennsylvania all the time to escape the high taxes of your state. But you guys do have better roads in some places. I don't mean to poke, I'm just saying.
No, no, no. But no, that is good. But the insurance was surprising
Mm,
because I would have probably guessed $1,200 a year, hundred
yeah.
dollars a month. But
Well,
yeah,
I used to get $1,200 a year like 3 or 4 years ago.
yeah,
And I just shopped a rate recently and it was $2,000 a year.
yeah,
So the prices have gone up for sure, but I shopped around to find that. And even the rate that I haven't had to shop recently has been going up every year by like 15% since
yeah,
2019, right? So insurance rates have been going up. So that's another thing to factor in is the house that you're looking to buy, to build, that is, it's going to have that new house smell to it. It's also going to have that new house insurance,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
replacement cost, the depreciation are not going to be in your favor at that point. Same thing with the taxes. They're going to assess it based on what you're saying it costs to build. That has to do with your permits and their cost per square foot and whatever else. You go with 1,600 square feet, your tax is going to be higher. Also, the closer you get to the Delaware water gap, that's like New Jersey, the higher your taxes go. It's almost like concentric rings because the school
Yeah.
districts get more expensive, things like that. So your mortgage payments are obviously a function of your taxes and your insurance on top of the cost of the house that you're purchasing. I'm hoping that you can get all of that below $2,700 a month. And that would make the income that you're expecting, like the $5,000 or $6,000 a month, to be a really comfortable margin for you. Scott, you were here recently, like last weekend, and you actually meet with a builder?
So we did. So we've talked with signature builders, but only on the phone. They're not local, right? Because they're modular
Hmm.
builders, so they kind of bring it out there. But we did meet with a guy named Rocco. His company is called Calibri Builders, and he has built at least a handful of homes, if not more, in Talamincing Trails. He's a really nice guy. The craftsmanship of his builds was really good, and he has a property listing for just kind of an all-in build on
Hmm.
one of the lots in Talamincing Trails. So the thing we really liked about Rocco is we could see the build. Like he showed us one that had just been finished. It was very similar to like the footprint we're looking for. It was a 2 bedroom. It was a 1 bath, but could easily have a second bath in there. And the chalet look, high ceilings, good amount of windows. I would say it looked more traditional chalet than like you know kind of fancy upscale Airbnb with giant windows and like
Hmm.
really, really modern kind of looking, but really nice craftsmanship. And I think the thing that we really find attractive about this builder is it's just like, this is the price. I'm going to do all the site work. I'm going to do everything. I know that I can sell you this house on this lot for this price, and
Hmm.
everything's included except for like landscaping, right?
Nice.
So that takes some of the guesswork out of it because that is one of the more daunting parts for us is
Hmm.
finding a piece of property and knowing that it's going to work. Some properties have perk tests already done, but some don't, or they fail it. Some
Hmm.
properties uh, have a survey. Some don't. A lot of them, nobody's done any of that yet. So I don't know, and maybe you can help guide me on this.
Hmm.
Is it customary to ask some person who's selling a lot or their realtor, can you can you do a survey? Can you do a perk test? We don't want to
Hmm.
put any money into this lot that we know nothing about.
Some of those sellers are motivated enough that they're going to do those things for you without a guaranteed sale. You can make an offer contingent upon pretty much anything. That's one of the things I love about real estate is that everything is negotiable. But every seller has their limits, what they're willing to put in there. Something that you can offer to make them feel more comfortable with it is a non-refundable deposit. A typical survey is going to be $1,200 for a basic, building lot. And you can have them do that where there's stakes and there's a map. And that'll also help your builder because they're going to need a survey done before they can start building things too. Your perk tests are in a similar vein. It's a lot more common to make an offer contingent upon a perk test passing. So a lot of things to consider there. Have you discussed with that builder potentially just doing the site work and then all the finish work with the signature homes build?
We have not. We have not. That's a good
I would
idea.
highly recommend exploring that because as a builder, he's only missing out on a couple of things, right? There's still a lot of finish work, still a lot of electrical to do, and there's all that site work still with the landscaping and the foundation. So your builder that you met with, you already trust, you already like them. They could probably do something like this, and then you still get that build quality from the Amish and the cost savings from the Amish, which is I see like a really big value here.
Yeah.
So Scott, I want to kind of wrap things up and ask if you have any final questions because we've gone over a lot of things today. You've got still the decision to make between Towmensing Trails and Camelot Forest. I think you're probably going to end up with a really good property either way. The key to take from this is that you can think about which one of these locations is going to work better for your guest avatar. Like if you're really diving into that two couples at a awesome getaway, then you can also think about which one's closer to things that those couples are going to want to be near. Which one's closer to skiing, hiking, snowboarding, um, even nightclubs. You know, not just closer, but are they going to want to go to the pool in the summertime? Because that's a key differentiator between these two neighborhoods. But then also, is Towmensing worth the extra effort of, hosting a property with no fires allowed? Hopefully that changes, but right now it's still in effect. Is Towmensing worth the extra work involved with registration of guests? So that's all going to inform your decision. And you've got a great realtor that you're working with to help you navigate the pros and cons of that. As a potential property manager for you, I'm happy to help and give you some more input if you're ever unclear on those things. But like I think I think the one that you've chosen, the build and the location that you're choosing, you're probably looking at $4,000 to $6,000 a month and just rent coming in, probably much better. I've seen two-bedroom houses earn $119,000 a year without being lakefront properties. Now that is gross. That's before paying the cleaners and the registration fees, but that's still a very high limit on your potential. So you build this right, decorate it right, get everything done, and focus on that guest the whole way. And I feel like you've made a really good investment, Scott.
Cool. I do have one more question
Absolutely.
that I just thought of, which is probably the thing that I know least about. And
Mhm.
honestly, the reason that I would consider property management above anything else. And that question is, how in the world do you decide how much to charge people?
It's dynamic pricing. It's not really
Okay.
actually that bad. You could
Okay.
learn it from a course. Um, you could also get dynamic pricing through a property management software. You can get dynamic pricing from Price Labs. You can get it from that's a third party tool. Um, don't make every day of the week the same price. It's got to fluctuate with demand. Your higher priced weekends are gonna like there's a NASCAR race in the neighborhood. So there's things like that that's going to cause it to fluctuate up and down. You definitely don't want to be undercharging by too much, and you don't want to be overcharging either. So getting that pricing
Okay.
dialed in is a process that takes some time.
Okay.
Um,
And so it
Property
sounds like
managers don't know either.
okay. But it sounds like there is a curve, still a little bit of a learning curve because these softwares they give you the dynamic pricing and then it just interfaces with the tool, or are you going in there each week and they give you suggestions? I just don't know the first thing about it, but
So the way I think of a dynamic pricing tool is that it's like the throttle on your vehicle, right? The more you press down, the faster you're going to go, but you let up on it and the same thing happens. So in Price Labs, you control your base rate. And in most dynamic pricing tools, that's exactly the case. Think of that as your average price over the next 24 months or over the next 12 months. So if you put that lower, that increases your throttle. You should see an escalation in your reservations and the number of reservations you get. If you put that higher, then you can expect things to quiet down a little bit. So it's just a matter of, in my experience, pressing on the throttle real hard in the beginning so that you can get that airplane up to cruising altitude, and then you let off the throttle and raise the prices so that you can cruise, a lot more efficiently at that 30,000 feet level.
Okay.
Whereas what some people do wrong is they don't push on the throttle enough in the beginning, and now they're cruising at 600 feet where the air is thick and there's a lot of things for them to avoid, and they have to go around mountains instead of going over them because they never got up to that elevation. It's a
Thank you.
lot
That really
easier, I
helps.
think, if you really press on that throttle right in the beginning to pick up your speed. And then after that, you're at your cruising altitude and your pricing is higher and it's kind of dialed in. So that's kind of the way I look at those dynamic pricing tools. And I mean, even your property manager is not going to know exactly what's priced this property at. They're going to compare it to other ones, but it's not going to start there. It should be a part of a strategy where you do build up some momentum and then you allow that momentum to keep you going, you know?
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
So, if today's episode sounds familiar, you're not alone. These are the challenges that no one talks about when they sell the dream of easy passive income, but they're exactly the problems that make or break your operation. If you've got a situation you want to share or some questions like Scott, then please email me your question or reach out if you'd be willing to come on the air like he did. Your problem might be the next one that we break down, and chances are you're going to help a lot of other hosts in the process too. If this episode helped you, share it with another host who's in the trenches. That's how we make this industry better. I'd also love to see you follow us on TikTok at Galvanized Investments and Facebook and YouTube at Galvanized Management. Until next time, stay steady, keep learning, and keep building something real.
This is Short Term Rental Problems and Solutions.
Thank you very much, Scott. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.